Another great SEC game that we got is number 11 Alabama at Texas A&M, 3:30 p.m. on CBS. And Dalton, the biggest story is these two coaches, man. The rivalry on and off the field between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. They used to be colleagues. Jimbo Fisher used to be Nick Saban's offensive coordinator when Nick Saban was the LSU head coach. He was there with him for 5 years before Nick went on to the Miami Dolphins. That once friendly relationship kind of turned sour last summer. Saban, of course, accused Texas A&M of quote-unquote buying all of its players after having literally the best recruiting class in history. Texas A&M had 8 5-stars in that class. Fisher called Saban a narcissist who should have been slapped. Listen, it's since quieted down. It's since Saban has since apologized. Fisher said he's moved on. So this was a big storyline last year, but it still is kind of a juicy storyline off the field, man, when these two coaches meet.
Well, anytime you're trying to involve someone getting slapped, yeah, it's juicy. that's something. But no, really, I mean, they can't even dodge each other in the off season anymore. No. I mean, this is how heavily. I mean, you know, with the way there's no rules on the recruiting grounds anymore, and the portal and NIL and all this stuff, you're going to see coaches fighting for this even more than they used to. It used to just be about prestige and getting kids in their hometown and all that. Now it's about who's paying all the money and who's doing the portal. And, you know, you see everybody ripping Dion for building this team through the portal. I mean, look, a team is a team. Whatever you put on the field is what you have. But no, it's always fun to see Saban go against his assistants. And like, you know, you've mentioned before, he's had a little more trouble with them lately. Yeah. But it's a big game, too. I mean, look, A&M's 4-1. Coming off a big win with their backup quarterback against Auburn. Are they 2-0 in the SEC? I believe it is.
I believe so. Yeah.
They beat Arkansas last week. That's right. And Bama, after the Texas loss, put Milroe back in there, gotten it rolling.
Yep.
Bama's found a formula. Okay, This game to me is a fun like tape watch game because you've got two teams that kind of counterpunch each other well. This is going to be a fun one because you've got last week against Arkansas, A&M blitzed KJ Jefferson on 2/3 of his dropbacks. All right, like 67%. It was like right at 2/3. Huge problems. It was a difference in the game, honestly, was when they blitzed KJ Jefferson, he had no answer. Now, we've been over Alabama's struggles blocking the blitz and Milroe getting the ball out against it. Now, the overall is better the last 2 weeks against it because really what he's doing now when he gets blitzed, he's taking off running. Yeah, which is fine. I mean, he's the best athlete on the field. That's cool. But I expect A&M to stay on the gas the same way they did against Arkansas. I would expect them to come out the same way and give Alabama's front every possible look they can to disturb Milroe. Okay. On the other side, you got something really interesting happening because you had Connor Wegman was playing well, albeit against the softer competition, and he gets hurt. He gets hurt against Auburn. But both of their quarterbacks, him and Max Johnson, for the season are grading above a 92. A&M is the second best. They have the second best passing grade in the country behind Miami right now. And you're talking about a team with Johnson who hasn't missed a beat. And to be honest with you, to me, Wegman's biggest asset is his mobility, but they didn't really use it a ton. They let him scramble, but they didn't use it a lot. Max Johnson, looking at it, might fit what Jimbo wants to do better in his offense. He wants to stand back there like Jameis Winston used to and throw the ball well downfield, right? Texas A&M right now is the second best team in the Power 5 behind Colorado on 10-plus yard throws, okay? Max Johnson's the last 2 weeks, I mean, he's zinging them down the field. He's got an absolute cannon, just like his dad Brad Johnson. Absolute cannon. He doesn't move a ton. He can pick you up 5 or 6 yards if he really, really needs to, but he's going to stand back there and sling it down the field. Now, counterpunch, Alabama is, first of all, they're the best coverage team in the country. And why? Because they're the best coverage team in the country against 10-plus yard throws. They don't allow you to get downfield. Ole Miss did not complete a deep ball on him. Will Rogers last week couldn't get anywhere on him. They don't give up big plays. The Texas game was the only game where they gave up a couple, and we already know how Quinn Ewers is against Alabama. So they have figured out that their Alabama secondary is the ultimate test for, I believe Wegman's going to be outright. It's going to be Max Johnson again.
Yeah, Wegman's done for the season, yeah.
Oh, he's done for the year. Wow. Yeah. Well, which is unfortunate. But to be honest with you, when you watch him the last 2 weeks with Johnson, he might fit their offense better. Jimbo still has a little bit of like the Florida State offense. He really hasn't updated it that much. It's drop back. It's making full field reads. It expects a lot of the quarterback and needs time in the pocket. Johnson, he reminds me even a little of Tyler Van Dyke, where it's like if he has time back there, if you give him time, he's gonna hurt you. He has got an absolute cannon, and he's not afraid to throw the ball down the field. But Alabama's secondary is the counterpunch. I really think this is a great game to watch between two teams who counter each other's quarterbacks very, very well. And obviously there's other factors that go into winning games, but for these two teams, especially Alabama, figuring out how to get Milroe going is big. And Johnson, now this will be his third game. He didn't start against Auburn, but he came in, I think, prior to or right after halftime. He's looked really, really, really good, but he hasn't seen a coverage unit like this.
Yeah. No, he hasn't, man. That's a great point that you made because, A&M does blitz at a high rate in the past couple of weeks, and that's kind of the formula for Alabama. Like you mentioned, they are doing better against it. That's kind of the formula you want to be running it with the Crimson Tide, so that's going to be a great matchup. And then on the other side, you mentioned it. I mean, I thought when Weigman went down, I was like, okay, I was really high in A&M because of Weigman, who I think can still be one of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft. Max Johnson, right now, like you said, 92.2 passing grade. That's fourth among all quarterbacks in the country right now, man. And he has a great receiving core to throw to as well. 79.3 receiving grade. You got Evan Stewart, who I mentioned. Luther Burden's probably the number one receiver next year's draft. Evan Stewart's probably number two, man. He's a stud receiver A&M's got. Anais Smith has played really well as well. The other thing that I think Alabama can take advantage of, though, is you see right there, Texas A&M is 103rd in pass blocking grade. They have not done a very good job of protecting Weigman and Max Johnson. Dallas Turner has really put all those tools together so far this season. Before, he was kind of a high ceiling guy who hasn't really put it together, in my opinion. This year he has. And this year he's showing why he should be a first-round pick in this upcoming NFL draft. Right now, Dallas Turner is fourth among all edge defenders in the country with 24 pressures on the season. Dallas Turner could have a big game against Texas A&M. I think that's going to be a big mismatch for the Aggies is Dallas Turner and, of course, the other defensive lineman that Alabama has as well, getting pressure on Max Johnson. But like you mentioned as well, Alabama, man, great coverage unit. I'm number one in coverage grade, only allow about 4.6 yards in per passing play as well. And then the two corners they got, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who I thought was the number one corner in the country entering the season, and Terrion Arnold, the other cornerback they have there. They're two of the Power Five's 10 highest graded cornerbacks so far this season. They're the only duo to be in the top 10 of the Power Five. So they have two stud corners. And like I mentioned, Texas A&M has two stud receivers in Evan Stewart and Anais Smith. So that matchup that you'll see with those two is going to be a lot of fun. So it should be, again, they match up really well, both teams with each other. So it should be a really, really interesting game. Dalton, the last two Alabama and A&M games have really come down to basically the last play of the game. Of course, A&M beat him on the field goal, game-winning field goal with no time left a couple years ago. Last year, when Jalen Monroe was starting because Bryce Young was hurt, it came down to a goal line stop for Alabama to win the game. Who do you think comes out on top this year, and do you think it will be another classic game that we get?
I do. I think it's going to go down to the wire. As far as predicting any crazy endings or anything like that, these two teams it's been going back at least a decade. But and it's always tough to win at A&M, no matter how good or bad they are, right? I think the Crimson Tide are going to pull it out. I think they're starting to find a rhythm. I think their defense has really played to Saban's identity, his background in the secondary and everything like that. Dallas Turner, I think you make a really good point on him because I think it's widely assumed he's going to be a first-round pick. This is the type of game that could make you a top 10 pick. Yeah. Okay, you go into A&M as your team's best pass rusher against a quarterback who you really need to get pressure on in big moments, and you perform. He puts up something like 2 or 3 sacks in this game, you're going to talk about him being in the top 10 or 12 in the draft. So it's a big game. It's a big game all the way around, right? The SEC West is still kind of open. Almost everybody's got a loss now. A&M is undefeated. Bama's undefeated in the SEC West at least. This is a huge game. I mean, you can see this is kind of a driver's seat game with LSU losing to Ole Miss. So I think Alabama's defense is going to be the difference in this game, right? Auburn can play, Arkansas can play, but Max Johnson hasn't seen this, and it's just Bama. They're finding their identity. I think so. Now, could they find some struggles against the blitz and Milroe having to improvise a lot and all that? Sure, but I just think they're finding it. I think they are starting to get in a groove, and if they get in a groove, like if they win this game, look out.
Yeah.
Because LSU doesn't have a ton of answers, especially on defense. They've already beaten Ole Miss. If you get this Alabama team in a groove and they beat LSU and they get all the way to SEC title game, and it's like, oh, wait, Alabama's back to being Alabama. I thought they lost to Texas in the thing, USF and all that. This is a big breaking point, I think, here for Alabama. If they can break through this game at A&M, I'm going to take them 27-24. It's going to be tight. A&M's got talent. A&M can really throw the ball. This is just as big a test for Alabama's secondary as Texas was. A&M can really get down the field, and they can really. I'm for A&M's sake, I'm hoping they come in with the same. If they come in with the same game plan they did against Arkansas, which is the exact opposite of what Ole Miss did against Bama, by not blitzing them at all. Yeah. If they come in and they stay aggressive like they did against Arkansas, they're going to give themselves a fighting chance, because Milroe, he's not giving the ball away against the blitz the last couple weeks, but he is taking off running. So, and there are things in certain defenses when you can design pressures for mobile quarterbacks to force them to roll a certain way and get him on the back end of it. I think that's where A&M is going to go with this. That's what I would do, because Milroe wants to hold the ball as long as he can, whereas Johnson, the opposite, wants to get rid of the football, right? You've got two opposite quarterbacks, and you've got two defenses that counter those two guys across from each other. So it's a weird dynamic in this game, and I wonder if maybe all that being said, that Jace McClellan might just be the difference, the running game for Alabama, because you look at the rest of A&M's team performance-wise, the quarterbacks have been great, and everything else has been closer to solid. But I'll take Alabama 27-24, and that defense, their secondary, being the difference, because right now it looks like the best secondary in the country.